Hey everyone, you're listening to another episode of Fight Stories. This is Tyler Morrison with my co-host John Moses, and we have an amazing episode for you guys today. We're super stoked about this. We have former NHL enforcer Jim McKenzie on the line here. Hey Jim, how you doing? Thanks so much for doing the show.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. And you may have set the bar a little high. You should probably wait till the interview's over so you decide if it was a good interview or not.
The magic of editing, Jim.
I said it was going to be a great show, and it was terrible.
Yeah, we're batting 50-50, so.
Awesome. Always aim to be middling.
Yeah, good enough for a playoff spot.
Yeah, exactly. So how have things been going with you, man? You're out in Des Moines today. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yeah. I do pro scouting for Vegas, and Minnesota's one of my teams, so I watch them, and I watch their farm club, which is in Des Moines. So
very
been
cool.
Here a couple of days watching games, and it's been great. Great little town, and it's winter time, but it's not actually that bad when the sun's out.
Right on. Yeah, we're just up in New Jersey right now, so obviously you're familiar with Jersey. That's where you won the cup, right? So good memories.
Yep.
How's it like being out in Vegas and getting to enjoy that weather year round?
I don't. So as a scout, I actually live in Tennessee. I live in Nashville. As a scout, you never live where your team is. You go out and you watch the other team. So
right.
We'll go in there for meetings a couple times a year, which is always awesome because, to your point, the weather is great. It's a great place to go. And the rest of the time, I'm in the Midwest, anywhere from down in San Antonio all the way north to Winnipeg, go throughout the Midwest, wherever the teams are that I cover.
Right, just freezing your balls off.
Some days, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we got to bring Jim back to Vegas, warm him up a bit, then send him right back out on the road.
to thaw.
Actually, depending on who you talk to when I played, I don't really have any balls to freeze off, so I should be okay.
Bet you they wouldn't say that to your face, though.
Usually there was a linesman in the way or it was across the bench.
Did you ever run into those guys you ran into on the ice in the scouting now? You see them around the rinks, or?
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of guys stayed involved. Actually got a really cool picture last year in Nashville. Stu Grimson, or 2 years ago, Stu Grimson was doing TV for Nashville, but he was there. They're playing Columbus. Jody Shelley does that. Dave Brown was there. He works for the Flyers.
Oh, man.
And, I'm trying to think who the other guy was exactly. It was a picture. It was a heck of a rock pile is what it was.
Oh, yeah. It's like the NHL version of a police lineup right there.
Oh, man, no kidding. Yeah,
if you took those fights and put them on the streets, you got like 200 years of assault charges per guy.
Exactly right.
That's awesome. So basically with the podcast, what we try and get into is just, the genesis of what turned you into one of the NHL's most, notorious pugilists. And we just kind of go back from the start of your career and where you came from and, and how it evolved. And we're very interested.
Tyler is really a hockey fight connoisseur. And I'm just a guy that used to slam my head up at guys against fists out in the streets back in the day. But he speaks so highly of you and puts you top 10 all-time toughest in the NHL. That's
true. Now, for having watched as many fights as I have, I'm a huge fan of Jim. So it's getting to watch all the clips and stuff and seeing all the other guys and what they've done. I was definitely very impressed with the level of skill that you brought to your role in the game and
even just like talking to you, like you sound. Gentleman Jim McKenzie is the nickname, but even talking to you, you sound very like a very nice gentleman. And then I pulled up your picture, and Jesus fucking Christ, it would look like you'd hurt your hand on your face.
Nobody gets prettier doing this job. I told you that, but that's not how it works.
Right.
So we were watching a thing, and I think you were saying about how when you started out playing hockey, you never really started out fighting a lot, and then just as you got a bit older and you realized that was going to maybe be your ticket, that's kind of where you started fighting. What was your first fight that you got in on the ice?
Well, the very first would have been in midget hockey. I played midget hockey in Moose Jaw, and you just went and played. And back then, you wore full cages, obviously, in midget hockey. So it wasn't. The first one really wasn't much of a fight. It was just you hit one guy, he hits you back, or something playing physically, you're playing through a course of a game, and finally you've had enough of the guy, and you just get at it, and then it's over, and that was so. It happened a couple times in midget hockey.
Midget hockey for people who aren't in who are fight fans but not necessarily know the finer details of hockey, especially here in the States. That's what, you're 12 years old, right?
No, that's Pee Wee. Midget would be midget's a bit older. Midget's like 16?
Out west are 15, 16, it's one birth year of 15, 16, and 17 years old.
15, 16,
For the
17.
casual fan, you're not just beating up midgets.
No, but that's interesting. So you're 15 years old and you have your first hockey fight, and then how old are you when you get drafted to the NHL?
I was 19. I was a 19-year-old. I was drafted in Victoria, is where I was. And they had the Cougars. They're now in Prince George. They got a different team, but that was part of the Western Hockey League.
Yep.
And I was drafted as a 19-year-old. I went from there to Hartford, is where I was drafted, and had my first camp with them, and played in the American League the next year.
Mm. So let me ask. So you're what, 15 for your first fight, and like you said, you're just pumping each other's cages. Nothing's really happening. How quickly are you from your first fight to you're like, I'm going to be a fighter? Like, how does this progression take shape where we're suddenly like, I'm going to crack the league as a fighter?
I never thought that way.
Yeah.
Like I said, it happened a couple times in midget.
Yep.
A little more in junior, but even in junior hockey, guys are fighting 20 times. It was a lot. I don't know that I've ever fought more than 10 times in a season. I really never thought of myself that way.
Right.
I just went out and played hockey. Whether I was any good at it or not, I don't know, but I just went out and played. And if someone took a run or I took a run at them, they didn't like it, or if they ran at a teammate when I was out there, then I would do something. But I never sat, even in junior hockey, and went, okay, I'm going to go fight that guy. Or I was like, you knew what could happen. You knew who the tough guys were and how but even back then, like the guys who were, like Reed Simpson and Darren Kimball and Jet Bodgers and a lot of these guys that were, I think when I was there, Tony Twist, Kelly Chase, you went out and played, like you just played, and the emotionally is where it got there. Like one guy would run one guy, there'd be one hit here and somebody didn't like it, and that's just kind of how it escalated. So for me, it wasn't, I'm going to go fight this guy tonight and then this guy tomorrow night.
Right. You weren't marking the calendar. You were just looking at the game.
Well, that's the Western Hockey League back then was just so tough. Like, it was a pretty thick league in terms of how, the caliber of tough guys, right? So
right.
So you're running into the Tony Twists and Darren Kimball's on a daily basis. We were just saying in the car on the way here about how Saskatchewan breeds probably the toughest hockey player per capita ever in the NHL. If you go back and count, who's all from there, it's insane. So especially during your era, which would have been the golden era for tough hockey, I would say.
Yeah.
There's just so many guys that could protect themselves and their teammates out there that you would have been running into. It would have been every night there was someone out there, that was on your team, probably getting into it, right?
Yeah, there was no off nights. There was nothing like that, and that certainly carried through to pro hockey as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so you get called up to Vancouver, or not Vancouver, sorry, you're in Victoria, and you get called up to Hartford to the Whalers. How exciting is that to come into the league as a rookie, and I mean at a very tough time when there's lots of rough stuff on the ice. That's got to be pretty entertaining for you.
Well, This will show you how clueless I am. So I was drafted by Hartford. I played that first year in the minors. I got a couple at the end of the year, nothing great. The next year I started the minors again. And I was up and down. And we went on. They called me up. They went on a road trip, and we went in and played in Calgary. And I scored my first goal. So I'm feeling pretty good about myself. And that was early '90s. Calgary had really good teams. They'd won the Cup in '89. They bumped us about 6 or 7 too. They give it to us. And we came in the locker room after. Rick Lee was our coach, and he just unloaded on everybody because we played so bad. Now, I was young, just the way I was when I was young. I had the rabbit ears. I heard everything negative. That was just the way it was, and I just that's how I was. But he came in, he lit everybody up. He lit me up because I didn't fight anybody. Now, and I'm serious. I didn't know that was my role. Like, I fought a bit in the minors. Where guys are putting up 250, 300 penalty minutes. They're fighting 20 times, 25. I had like maybe 125 pounds or something my first year. I think I fought maybe 10 times. I fought all the tough guys, and I did well. But it just, like I said, I just went out and played hockey, and if it happened, it happened. So I'm just getting railed in this post game thing, and I'm all fired up, and
and you scored a goal, You're you're thinking you're coming into your own as a goal scorer.
How about the goal? How about these other guys who didn't score? Like, that's going through my little pea brain. We get on the bus or whatever we take. I don't know if we bust up to Edmonton, but we play Edmonton the next night. So I'm skating around in warm up, still the whole day long, and even in the warm up, I'm still pouting. I'm still all I can think about is the coach yelling at me, and in my mind, I'm like, man, I'm getting sent down. I don't even know if I'm gonna play tonight. Who knows? Like, I'm just fired up, and I'm kind of kicking a puck in my skates. They're going across by the red line, and they got this really big guy in Edmonton. He's stretching on our side. As he stands up, I run into him. Now I don't hit him hard, and I don't knock him down or anything, but we collide. And they got this little yappy guy, and I can never really remember if it was Acton or Linsman. I always got those two guys confused. But
both yappers.
He looks at me. He looks at the big guy, and he says, "Holy cow, Brownie! You gonna let that kid show you up in your own building?" Well, the big guy looks at me and says, "You're dead." I'm like, "Buddy, come on! I don't have time for this. Like, I scored last night. I got yelled at." Right? I'm like, "Go screw whatever." So it's kind of like Slapshot, where we glare at each other. We bump blood. Like, we're just the rest of the warm up. We're just at each other, a little bit. And Burger's playing for Edmonton. I'd play junior. He's like, "Mac," he goes, "You got a death wish? What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Bucky," I said, "You have no idea. Like, I scored last night. You probably saw it on the highlights. Like, leave me alone right now. I don't know. Like, I have no idea what I've done. I have no idea who I've poked, right?
Yeah.
And I don't care." So, and as I said, so I'm going off the ice into the locker room, and like I said, I fought maybe 10 times the year before, whatever. Almost every guy on our team, with the exception of our backup goalie, who's Daryl Ray, nobody had probably ever seen me fight. So they think, or they've been told I'm supposed to be a tough guy, but they've never really seen it, right? So I'm almost imaginary. I'm like Snuffleupagus or something. Like, they know maybe I exist, maybe I don't. And now I've just poked one of the toughest guys in the league in warm-up. So I come in, and it's just dead quiet. It's like a morgue in the locker room. And nobody will look at me. Nobody will look at me. It's like, don't look at the dead guy, right? Don't look at him. It'll be okay. So I'm sitting in there. And back then, what they used to do is for warm-up, you always have extras. And the coach would try the teams line up and try to figure out what they're doing. And then they'd cut a couple guys or sit a couple guys up to warm-up. So I'm sitting in there, and I'm hoping I'm playing. Meanwhile, the other guys who are extras are hoping they're not playing because of what I did.
Yeah.
Coach comes in, you're like, all right, man, this is great. First, to get out there, the big guy comes over, gives me a shot, right? Or you think you're tough, or whatever he says. Off we go. And we end up having what ends up being actually a heck of a really good fight.
Yeah.
And it's my first NHL fight, but it's a heck of a fight.
What a way to lose your virginity.
What's that?
I said, what a way to lose your virginity.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So I go to the box, fight ends. Now I'm going back to our bench, and our bench is going crazy. Now they know they've got a tough guy. They've seen me fight. They know I do it. And they're all fired up, like, holy, and I'm thinking, what is wrong with you? Like, you guys are idiots. Like, I don't get it. I end up down by Daryl Ray, and I got the pout going. I had the goal last night. I had a fight. The fight was okay, but, I didn't give it to them. Usually, I did really well in my fights in the mine.
So you don't even know that you're fighting, like, one of the toughest guys ever?
Oh, I have no clue. And so I jump back on. They turn me back out there. I go over. I give the big guy a shot. I say, "Hey, let's go." Like that was how it was back then. If you didn't think you got the better of the guy, or worse, you thought he got the better of you, you have to go back out and do it again, right? So I go chase him down. I'm like, "Let's go." And he gives me a shot. He's like, "Settle down," or something like that. And I'm like, "Crap." So I'm now straight at. I do line change. We get into the third period, maybe 10 minutes left, and we're down a goal. So I'm not playing the last 10 minutes because we need a goal. So I end up down by Daryl Reagan. I'm sitting by Razor. He's like, "What's your problem? Like, you got the big pout going? Like, you scored a goal last night. You just fought one of the toughest guys, maybe the toughest guy in the NHL tonight." And I'm like, "Razor, what are you talking about?" He said, "Scored last night." He said, "Coach yelled at him." He's yelling at me. I said, "And this guy," I said, "You saw me last year in the mines. I should have killed this guy." Like, come on, like, I'm talking. I'm getting set down. Like, I'm never going to play in the NHL ever again. I hate this game. Like, I need to quit. I'm going to go be a cop like my dad. Like, I'm just completely pouting. And Razor goes, "Do you know who you fought?" I go, "Yeah, it's the Brown guy." He goes, "That was Dave Brown." Like, ooh, Dave Brown, Charlie Brown, downtown Brown. Like, like who? Like Dave Brown of the Flyers? He goes, "How about Dave Brown of the Flyers who got traded to Edmonton last summer?" I felt the blood run right out of my face. Now I'm scared. I'm like, "Are you kidding?" So not only did I fight, I should feel good because I know I did really well, but I went out and poked them. Yeah. And the way it worked, if you remember back then, we're down a goal. We're going to poke the goalie, and if they score and go up 2, guess who's going back on the ice with my And now I know who he is, so I'm scared. And now
even though you just held your own, you know?
Yeah, now he's going to hurt me. He's going to really try to win this next one, and he's really going to try to hurt me. So we pull the goalie. I'm like, no, stay in there, But no, we pull the goalie. They don't score. I must have cleared the bench by 2 feet hopping over. I looked like we just won a playoff game or something. I was so excited. And Razor came right over and goes, you really didn't know who that was? I said, I had no idea I got traded.
I wasn't reading the hockey news.
That was my first NHL fight. So
that's awesome, man.
What a great fucking first fight. What a great story.
Oh man, yeah, and that was your first year in the league. You really started cutting a swath through guys. You ran into guys like Sean Cronin, Michel Petit. You dropped him, Adam Creighton, Tony Twist. Obviously, this is where that's a high caliber enforcer. What was it like fighting Tony Twist? Because that was one of my favorite fights that you had, where you guys were just swinging for the fences, and you ended up getting the jersey over his head and buckling him at the end. What was it like going against Tony Twist, who's another NHL legend?
Yeah, with the Twister, I mean, there weren't many guys that punched as hard as Twister. Like, he honestly tried to separate your head from your body every time. If you watch him swing, and I think he told me he was around maybe 5'11", 6 foot. Certainly not as tall as a lot of guys, but I think he said he was about 150 pounds the one year he played. And he was in great shape. It was just ginormous, right? And but that's how dumb when you watch. That's how dumb we were with that age. Fuck Cowboys, a grab on, start swinging, and if he's going to throw rights, I'm going to go left, and vice versa. So you're wide open. We just kind of, I got a little smarter the way I fought later in my years as I played more games and more seasons and everything else. But no, he was and you ask anybody, any of the guys that fought him, and he tried to take your head right from your shoulders. Like, he swung so hard. It was like right out of the fences, and you had to be ready. When you're going to take one of those, just hope for the best.
And I think, like, your ability, one of your biggest attributes as a fighter is your ability to fluidly switch hands and from left to right. And I think that's kind of what put you over him in that one fight, especially. Just that ability to switch up, and it keeps the guys off balance a bit. You know what I mean? And that's I think that was a huge thing, especially back then, where a lot of guys were just sort of starting to figure that out. You kind of were I don't want to say an early adapter of that, but a lot of guys were one-arm bandits too. When they're coming in the league. Yeah. And
I found that even in junior, that fights seemed to come in bunches. Like, you would go a couple weeks without one, and then you'd fight 3 or 4 games in a row, and if you hit it, like in junior, we used to take our helmets off because we had visors. So you stood back, the visors stayed out of the way, you took your helmets off. But the heads is so hard, your head's so hard, your skull. Yeah. So if you the fight, you start to get sore. And that's actually where I learned to first start throwing with my other hand. Was my right hand would work. Sometimes you couldn't hardly close your hand.
Interesting.
It was so swollen, the knuckles would swell up. So you learn to throw it. Once I got a little bit of confidence, but the 2 things I learned is it just threw guys off to see a left hand. Mm-hmm. It's just the most odd. Most guys are right-handed. If you switch off and suddenly you don't even have to hit the guy hard. You just kind of get it in and get it out there.
Yeah.
It threw off a lot. In junior hockey especially, it just rattled guys. They didn't like it, and it threw them off. And then I learned to throw harder and throw quicker and with more power and all those other things. But to your point, it certainly helped me along the way. There were certain guys that almost every guy could do it. They could throw both hands. But there were a few guys that didn't have the confidence, and if I knew that, I would always tie up their strong hand and make them try to throw with the other ones, and there were a lot of guys that didn't like that. So they would avoid them. Avoid the fight.
Well, that might have made it the fight with Brown such a spectacular fight, is because he was predominantly a left-handed fighter, and you were able to throw with your left hand very well, and that made it like a real good slugfest, just a toe-to-toe,
Well, and that shows you how smart he was, because I never tied up his right hand.
That's it, right?
So, Tyler's talking about how tough Saskatchewan is in that league. Was there anybody who you sort of fought in that league and only to see them a few years later in the NHL, and you're like, wow, this guy has like grown leaps and bounds and gotten so much tougher?
No, because most of the guys you fought then were like, Twister or Kelly Chase or Jeff, Reed Simpson. All those guys, they were. You were whatever you were in junior, and then as you put on, got bigger,
right?
Whatever, that certainly increased, but it increased for everybody that could still do it. You know what I'm saying? So you get a guy into, in the
nobody's hitting puberty late in these leagues.
What's that?
Nobody's hitting puberty late in these leagues.
Oh, no, absolutely not. No, there's none of that, But you would, from time to time, you'd see a guy in the American League or whatever that was tough at junior, and he didn't get the extra 5-10 pounds or the extra buzz.
Oh, right.
For the next, that kind of thing. But for the tough guys, it seemed like, it just kept going, it kept carrying, it kept finding a way.
Gotcha.
And,
so it was the other way. There were some guys who were tough, and they just never, they never not matured, but they just never, like you said, put on that extra weight.
Exactly.
I'm always like when you first get into the league, and for me, and I think most men, you don't really put on your man weight until your mid-20s. Is when you start really filling out. I feel like a lot of you, the real warriors kind of fill out early, or you just got those type of genetics. But is there a moment where you're in the league? How old were you when you first broke?
I was turning 20 when I went to the late birth year, so I went 20. So I got some games later as a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
The first camp in Hartford, I was 60 and I was over 200 pounds. I don't think I ate 2 weeks before I went to camp. I was so lean and skinny, and so it took me till I was probably 26 or 27 to hit the entire weight and
well, that's what I mean. And so you're in the league, and you're nailing guys who are everybody's a man in that league, but I mean you're nailing guys who are you're stronger at 26, 27.
You're in the league. You're in the league for 6 years fighting before you hit that weight. That's what's interesting. Yeah,
that's what I mean. Having to grow into that, and the fight you take.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, it was
And so when you're early in the league coming in, and obviously Dave Brown was the big boy in the block, and also Bob Probert is running wild. He may have been out for a year or so with his legal troubles, but what was it like seeing a guy like Probert, at the top of the ladder? Were you looking at him like he's someone that you want to really take on, or was he someone that you were just kind of wary of? Almost like if you knew what Brown was before. Did you see him as someone to
Yeah, it was strength. He was, as you said, Brownie was probably the toughest guy in the league, but he was a legend, right? It was what he created, in part because of who he was and his personality, character. I think he had almost 30 goals when he went to the All-Star game. There was a lot there, and the great thing about him was when guys would get called up, he didn't care who you were. If you wanted, he didn't go after you. But it was a big deal to get called up, even if you got beat up by Proby.
Yeah,
you could say you fought Robert. That was a big deal.
Right.
You're not going to enjoy this beating, but
right. He'd give you a shot.
Close my eye up, something like that. You see that. I was in Hartford. He was over in Detroit on the other side, so I never saw a whole lot of him until years later when I ended up over on the Western. It was like you said, that every team had at least one guy. Some teams had two. I remember playing against, I think it was Vancouver had, at one point they had Gino, Tier, and Troy Crowder.
Oh, man.
You think? Holy cow. What we got? What are we doing tonight, boys? We're going to work on our skill game? What are we doing, right?
Yeah.
Just a line of SEAL clubbers.
Guys, whether they're both heavyweights or, you have heavyweight or whatever. You had different guys that fought different heights and weights and levels.
Did you have anyone that you were riding shotgun with, another tough guy that was kind of like your wingman, going into fights? Kind of like, Koser and Probert were riding shotgun together. Did you have anyone, or were you primarily carrying the heavy load for your team, the lone gun?
Well, it wasn't so much a lone gun, but like I said, my last year I played with Nashville, Jordan Toot was there. And I mean, Toot's, holy cow, he could fight. He's tough as nails. But he didn't need to be fighting the heavy with the real big guys, because that just wasn't who he was. But in terms of playing the heavyweight, when I came in, Eddie Hartford was a tough guy and fought a lot.
Ed Costello,
I played a year and a half in Anaheim with Stu Grimson as my teammate.
Oh, that's nice, too.
I was, great guy, super guy, but that was probably the strangest in the sense I'd never had another heavyweight like that. especially someone like Stu as a teammate. So that was
you could take a night off.
A couple of years.
Yeah.
The worst part was so we're teammates a couple of years. The kids got to know each other, and just a great guy. So about a year, I think it was the next year, the year after, I end up in New Jersey. He's with LA, and we have to fight.
Oh no!
And we get in this fight. It's not much of it. We have the fight. You can't fake a fight. But we have the fight. The fight's over, and I went over to say hi to him after the game. And his son, Christian, at the time, couldn't have been maybe 4 or 5, sees me and just starts bawling.
Oh,
you tried to hurt my daddy, and you guys are supposed to be friends. I could feel myself shrinking every step closer to him until I was about 1 inch tall. I felt so bad.
Melt your heart. Yeah.
Of all the men you've chopped out, it's a 5-year-old that brings you to your knees. You're like, oh, God.
Exactly. And then, of course, I was going to argue with him, say, well, your dad was I got to hit him back, but I didn't do that.
He just went and hugged the little guy.
Oh, that's funny.
Exactly. So.
That's
Hartford. I watched a game in Hartford when I was 16. I'm from Canada, but I watched a game in Hartford, and I was always amazed at how run down the arena was. Like they had I remember bleacher seats, in basically what would be the gold section of the Gardens. But what a fan base! Those guys, they still sell merch up in Hartford, Whalers stuff. I still got guys that just love the Whalers. It was such a tragedy to see that place box up and move out of town.
It was you want some fights. The fans, whenever Boston and Hartford played, there were better fights in the stands than there were on the ice because the fan base. He would stop. He'd stop in the middle of the game. He'd look at the stairs, and you remember in the top tier they were so steep, and you'd see the 2 or 3 police officers going up there to break up a fight and drag somebody, tunnel them out, and the whole bit. You got to get up and go to work tomorrow. What are we doing?
Yeah,
Great place to start. And I was so very fortunate when I came there. I wasn't there long when he was there, but my first roommate was Joel Quenneville.
Oh, really?
Quenneville was there. Dave Tippett, Ron Francis, Samuelson, Kevin Dineen, Dina, Mike Liute early on, Pat Verbeek, all these guys that Darryl Ray can go on and on, whether they're in media, the TV side, or whether they're in coaching, management, wherever. It's incredible the group that came out of there with years that I was there, and these are unbelievably great vets. When they had good teams back then, they didn't get 1 round or 2 in the playoffs, but it's really good teams. And I was lucky to have that kind of veteran guys in the locker room and around those back then.
Yeah. And the little tip for people that are listening, if you ever play NHL 92-93 on Sega, ESPN, if you play as the Hartford Whalers, you will get into a lot of fights. Get Jimmy in there and Ed Kostelic. And
if you score, do they play the Brass Bonanza?
Oh, that's great.
It's supposed to play my character, and he never scores.
Offense was real low on that rating.
I always felt bad for Ken Baumgartner. He was rated the lowest in the whole league in that game. That's a real kick in the balls.
Bummer.
That was a tough dude.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The other thing I want to ask you is, did you ever find that, like outside of the game or whatever, maybe you guys are out at the bars, you ever had any opposing team fans on the road trying to start shit with you guys after the game? So you ever run into any altercations out off the ice, or did people leave you alone?
Not really. Yeah, most of the time, and a lot of time they don't have bar, right? In most places. If they're, I guess, really hockey crazy, they might figure it out. But if you go into most cities, big city, you just go in, there's a group of guys, you have dinner, or they go, whatever they do kind of thing. Most of the time, people aren't going to know who you are. It's not like, I'm sure there's certain places in NHL might be recognizable or whatever, but, overall, anywhere you went, you're pretty quiet. You just kind of came in, did your thing, and
it didn't have the same type of instant media exposure with social media and everything like that. And I'm sure today people get recognized a little easier because of those things. But
so the other question I have for you is, like playing through the league, you played several years. Who do you feel that you had like the best rivalry with individually as a fighter? Who did you have the best rivalry with that was the most competitive or just the most heated? Was there someone that like, you know, there's bad blood or you know,
right?
Just someone you didn't respect?
I never had a guy that it was bad blood. I don't know why. It just wasn't that.
Mm-hmm.
I think what you have is it became more rivalries between teams. So, like when I was with New Jersey, you know, it was Dale Puritan and Sandy McCarthy with the Rangers. You know, there was Chris McAllister in Philadelphia. When I went to Nashville, we had a bit of a rivalry with Columbus. It was Jody Shelley.
Yep.
And, you know, and then it just depended on, because it used to be, you know, if you had a rival with a team, like for the Jersey was playing the Devils or Flyers, there's a good chance not it's going to be in the first 5 minutes, just trying to one-up each other, right?
Yeah.
Trying to create this, you know, we can come over the top on this. We're going to do this, and it's just you throw everything at teams, and that if you're a goal scorer, you better score. If you're that throws hits, if you're a fighter, get at it. You know, get at it. Sometimes, coaches, you're in the starting lineup, and you knew if the other guy was out there, you're fighting first shift. No, let's go. It was just one-upping. You just took turns one-upping, and that's kind of how it went. So it was less really about the guy situation. It didn't really matter who was wearing the jersey. It was like, you know what, this is, you know, we're a rival. This is how it works, and here, let's go. And most guys did.
And then I guess in terms of team rivalries, one of the rivalries, you know, we were Leaf fans growing up. So like the Toronto Maple Leafs versus New Jersey Devils. That rivalry got pretty heated through the playoffs. You guys, of course, beat us. Congratulations. But
or was it a rivalry on your end? I know, if, like for our fan base, we were like the fucking Devils. You guys just might have been like, "Here's another step to the championship." We don't care who it is.
Well, but you know what? You're right. It's funny when you're lucky enough to have. The 3 years when I was in Jersey, we went to the finals twice, and they had won the cup the year before I got there. Every team thinks they're a rival of you.
Right.
That makes sense. And Toronto was that moment because that was and that series could have gone either way. And
yeah,
so
and it got a little dirty and it got a little chippy.
Right. Mm-hmm. The Rangers are a rival.
Yeah.
I know it sounds crazy, but 3 years in New Jersey, you never lost a game to them that I was there. It was an exhibition.
Oh, wow.
They were struggling. They were getting their team turned over. It was, you know, they took their cups during the 90s, and that was in the process of turning it over. We never lost it to them, but still thought we were a rival, and rightfully so. It's New York, New Jersey, right?
Yeah.
And it's funny how so, but I would say in that brief window, certainly in the playoffs, Toronto, and then through the course of the year, we battled Philly, and it always came down to a game in the second half or two. The winner of that would win the division and finish, you know, in the top three, and the loser went down, right? Because that was how it was set up before. So we had rivalries with Philadelphia as well. So when you're winning, everybody thinks you're your rival.
That's it. Everybody's trying to take a shot at you.
That's a great way to look at it. And the other question I just had was during that series, obviously Domi threw the big elbow on Niedermayer. How much pressure was there on you as the enforcer to avenge that the following year? Was it the following year that you guys had that dust up, right?
Yeah.
Was there a lot of pressure in the media?
I wouldn't even say pressure. It was what it was. Like, you know, that's my teammate. You don't do that. And,
you want to take a shot at it.
Of course.
But the amazing part was, if you remember, he was actually playing very well during the playoffs.
Yes, he had a great.
I think he'd been like one of the stars of the game in the one game. Like, he was actually playing well.
Yeah.
And we were struggling. We were battling ourselves because they were so, you know, Gary Roberts and McCabe and all those guys, Corson. They were they were just annoying to play. Right.
There's some depth with toughness there and skill.
But they had something they could play. But they were gritty and they were agitating, and we battled more in our locker room, like guys getting at each other because we just couldn't come together.
Wow.
Cheap shot honestly brought us together. He doesn't do that. I don't think we win the series. I really don't.
Wow.
I think so too. Yeah.
That immediately, you saw Scott Stevens' reaction. You saw everyone's reaction. That immediately brought us together. And I think we lost the next game, and then one series is over.
It was the turning point.
That I don't know that we do.
That's really interesting because I always kind of thought that might have been the turning point because he erased almost a lot of, you know, the good stuff that he was doing in the playoffs and the momentum totally shifted after that because you guys got real serious and, you know, kind of woke a sleeping giant, I guess.
Yeah.
what they say. But like just like from the job perspective, you know what I mean? Do you feel that like, I mean, I don't want to get too deep into it, but Domi not answering the bell in that moment, do you feel that like, maybe that's the time where he kind of he owes you that fight?
I don't know that me anything. Like I think
Okay.
I certainly expected it. I think our whole team did. They expected it. You know,
Right.
because he was a tough guy. You know, he wasn't a rat. He wasn't a pest. He wasn't that guy. This is a guy that fought everybody, and he's a tough guy. So
Who is a rat or a pest?
Yeah, who pissed you off the most?
There were lots of rats and pests. Holy cow!
Who pissed you off the most in your career with that?
Yeah. Well, and that's funny because you get after these guys, and you know, like Versailles, the line they could say no, they could say no. That's another reason it's so effective was that Ty wasn't necessarily a giant. So when he went over and challenged guys, if they did him look kind of fool, right, to a certain extent. And then if they drop, it look even more foolish. But
Right.
you know, it's lose for him. But yeah, that was getting back to that when I mentioned Jordan Tutu. That was one of the things that year was any of those guys like that. That was the guy Jordan would go after.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, he fought a lot of tough guys, but he could target those other guys too. If they're running around sticking our best players, running other stuff, you give them one warning, so you may want to tone it down, and if not, you know, look out, here he comes. There's a lot of guys got caught on either because he could hit like a truck, or he
Yeah.
could fight through both hands, and he could give it to guys, and he did. So it was great having him as a teammate that year.
Yeah, because he really looked up to you as a mentor, I believe. Like we were watching that. There was a documentary, Honor and Courage, like several years ago. But it was you were in Nashville at the time, and it kind of highlighted how you were mentoring the younger players, and he was one of them especially. And you could tell like that he learned a lot from you in his early career, and really took some of those lessons to the game. It's kind of cool to see.
No, he's a great kid.
Jim, let me ask you. You're out there. You're scouting now. The game's changed. I mean, I'm sure it's much more. You're looking a lot more at stat sheets and less of some of these intangibles. Like how tough a kid is. What's your opinion, just sort of overall, like as a guy who was in there banging? What's your opinion like in the direction that the game's gone?
I think it's, as you said, there's right now, I think that for a lot of the players are kind of caught in the sense of when players have the puck, they work hard and they certainly compete.
Right.
I don't know that they compete as much without the puck, and it's not because they don't want to. It's they're scared to knock, but with trip a guy, kind of make contact, or if they knock a guy down, they're scared to get a penalty right now. I really do think that's how far we've gone. So it's harder. I really do think there's not a lot of fighting. There's very little hitting, whatever. But these guys will go out and block shots. Like there was no way in a million years you're going to make a shot. May twist. That's fine. I'm not blocking a shot. Like it just
Right. You don't want to. Yeah. You don't want to get a puck in the throat or whatever.
Because the way the game is and the way the game is and the way the penalties are called, these guys are all in shooting lanes, blocking shots. They're all doing that, but they can't really finish checks the way they would like to. They can't really hit or play for fear of taking a penalty, because once you've done it a couple times, I know the coach is going to say, just stop doing that, any more penalties. So, but it still has a big effect. If you saw any of the Washington game the other night, I guess the two teams, heck of a game. Both teams get at it.
Yeah.
But, Ryan Reeves had a huge impact, scored a huge goal for us on the power play. So there are a few guys, there aren't many of them, but there's guys like that, and it's a great effect on the game, because no matter who you are, you still don't like getting hit. I mean, that's just right. And you'll take a hit, take two hits pretty soon. If you're a player that doesn't like getting hit, you're going to move the puck. You're going to turn the puck over. You're going to make a mistake because somebody's coming to finish a check on. Not dirty, not trying to hurt you, not find any of those things. It's just the way the game, and it used to be like that all the time. You'd have a shift or two. If you hadn't had a hit, you'd have a coach, usually the assistant coach, come over, hey, start finishing your checks. Get your feet moving. Get in, finish your check. And it wasn't about hurting anybody. It was just get in there, all right, make contact.
That's the game. That's the game.
Yeah.
That's the way you knock a guy off of balance and, break focus and change momentum and all those things.
Right. Create it. Get luck,
Right.
And there's a lot. You see a lot.
Not me, but
Create a
somebody
little
else.
luck. Right. That's interesting.
Off you go.
And there's obviously a lot of attention being paid to the head injuries in the game and stuff like that. When you played the brand of hockey that you played, how many like concussions did you sustain over a career? Do you know, or like Is it just like one of those things that, you know?
Well, you know what? I'm sure I had a few.
Yeah.
In fact, I know I did. I don't know what the number would be. But I will say, like, for as much hitting as we used to do, and target the guy's head. You weren't trying to hit the guy's head.
Right.
If you're going in to finish, first of all, if you're going to finish a check, that guy would never turn his back to you. Didn't have to worry about hitting him from behind. If he was chasing the loose puck, if he's heading into his own zone and he has his back turned already, it's up to you as the guy hitting not to hit him because his back's turned, right? You don't hit him from behind.
Of course.
But if he's already there, it was up to him to turn and take the hit. That would you brace yourself against the boards, and sometimes he's braced against the boards. It's just a weird thing. I don't know if it gets passed onto the boards or whatever. But
Well, it's probably because there's so many more Europeans now. I'm just kidding. I said that for my father.
So you had the great hit was when you knocked a guy on his butt, and usually that is you had to get your pressure against his chest because that was how you could knock someone off balance. It wasn't about hitting. You weren't leaving. You guys weren't launching themselves at somebody's head, and you still had bad hits from time to time. It wasn't anything consistent, and a lot of times, almost guys maybe don't hit a lot. They don't know how, or they don't know what the target should be or how it should be. Should hunt back.
Yeah.
You know, you're trying to gain possession, and honestly, if you're in the playoffs, you're trying to wear the other down. If you can keep that same shoulder, bumping him, you're going to wear him out. He's going to get tired. He's picking himself up. He's going to get tired, and eventually he's going to make a mistake. And that's how we all looked at hitting. It wasn't about, hey, I'm going to go kill that guy.
Yeah.
It's like you're trying to knock somebody down. A great hit when you knock somebody on the butt. You know, that was a great hit. It wasn't seeing some guy getting carried off because he's woozy because his head's hurt because you targeted it. You know, so
Right.
There should be a way to do both where you can physical and still safe.
Yeah, and I think that with the new rule changes and stuff, maybe guys just aren't hitting as much, or guys feel that they are safer out there, so they turn their backs or they keep their head down a little bit longer. Then all of a sudden, when a hit that would normally come in the game that you played, that's a normal hit that we grew up watching. All of a sudden, that's putting a guy out because he had his head down or wasn't ready for it. Like they're not prepared for it, right? And I think that's kind of been part of it. The rule changes have allowed people
Fostered that a little bit.
to be complacent out there, or and so many guys are trying to draw penalties now. Like the games are won and lost on special teams a lot too. You know, so and
a lot of guys are skinnier than because the game is so fast. It's a game. There's certain guys in the league, you know who they are, that they're big that don't seem to keep up as well as they used to.
Yeah.
They haven't skinny. They've kept that muscle. They've kept that size, but they no longer need it. They really don't fight them.
That's true.
You got to be fast, and to be fast, you got to be skinny, but you got to be thin. And if you see a lot of these guys up, yes, they're not big guys, like width-wise. So when they do get hit, like when we train, not just for fighting, but for the battles, you trained your neck and your shoulders and your back and as much as your legs, because you knew you were going to take a beating in front of the net.
Right.
You at some point hit you. And like Rivalry beats a great example. The guy was like a tank. His neck and shoulders and back, like he knew he was taking a pounding in front of the net. He knew he was making contact, and he was going to be the first guy to do it.
Sorry, who was that again?
He trained Pat Verbeek.
Oh, Pat Verbeek. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
it's
like
funny.
you go out to score 30, 40 goals a year by taking a beating in front of the net. He could physically do it. Because of how strong he was, because how thick he was and muscular, whatever that he needed. Whereas again, you don't have that same stuff now, so they're a little lighter. So when they get hit, it's going to hurt a lot more.
It's true. I see some young guys in the league right now, and I'm like, and I don't know if it's because I was a kid watching men before, and now I'm a man looking at kids. But like I see some young guys in the league, and I'm like, God damn, like this guy's got some growing up to do. You know, like he's a thin kid. But super skilled and great and all that stuff, you know.
But the game allows that now. I think you're able to be a little bit thinner. Before
absolutely great skilled players, great ability.
Right.
And back in the day, having a grown man lean on you in the corner a little bit harder, you need to bulk up. Bulk up a bit.
Go down to the minors and hit the weight room and come back next year. Right?
Yeah.
That's exactly right. You need a few more pounds and. Better be ready. Like I said, the front of the net was that was where I remember playing in Jersey. Ken Danica was just a great guy, but Dano just abused guys in front of the net. Like,
Oh, yeah.
just wear them out. So, and you know what it was? It was so you never came back. Like, honestly, the guys who were doing that to you is because they didn't want you to come back to the front of the net.
Right.
So it didn't take skill to go to the front of the net. It took bravery.
Right.
You know, and that's what
Right.
like some of the Thomas Holstrom that played forever with Detroit. Some of these guys that weren't big guys, and they took a beating. They kept going back, and they were effective and scored goals. But Dano would sometimes, even for back then, go over the top and just absolutely catch somebody in the wrong with a stick or whatever, like a cross check. And the guy would be already on his way down, and Dano would give him one more. He couldn't help himself, and he'd get called for a cross check.
That's so he could go on Dancing with the Stars and no one would make fun of him.
Exactly. But he'd be skating to the box of the ref because they loved him because he was a great guy. He never,
Oh, yeah.
never had any problems with the refs. He'd be like, "Sorry, Dano, got to call it." And he'd be like, "You better call it what it is."
Did the crime do the time?
And he'd tell him, you call it the right way.
Oh, sorry, it was Battle of the Blades that Danico went on. The figure skating show.
Oh, that's
right.
What a great guy. What a tough hockey player, man. That's
Yeah.
like the a definitive tough stay-at-home defenseman right there. Like that's what you want, you know. That
Absolutely. Absolute anchor if you want to win championships.
that Jersey team was deep on defense too. Like, Stevens, Niedermeyer.
Yeah, I remember watching it, just looking at it. It's like what a thick-necked crew.
Yeah. Yeah. And the amazing part is the only time Marty would ever get mad, like you want to get Marty fired, and it was usually Dano or Scott Stevens, get in the shooting lane and block the shot. He didn't want anyone in the lane. He wanted to see the shot. It doesn't matter where the guy's shooting from. It was on. He wanted to make the save. He wanted to see the puck. Because back then the goalies had to make the save, and you get on those two, get out of my way, and they're just trying to block shots. They're trying to help out where they think they are, and that was about the only time you ever saw Marty get fired up.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna wrap things up pretty soon here, but we just have a couple more questions for you. And thanks again for doing this. This has been awesome. One of the questions I have for you is, who's the guy who hit you the hardest? Like, who's had the hardest punch that you absorbed in your career?
Twister obviously threw hard. Trying to think. The funniest fight was, so you could do different things with your hands or whatever, but you did a thing once in a while I do. It's called the crossover. So basically, I'd start out throwing right hands, but I'd end up reaching across with my right hand and grab onto your right arm and tie it up, and then I'd pull my left arm back and I'd throw left.
Yeah.
And you'd confuse, right? You confuse the guy to the point where he didn't know what was going on. And even if he didn't hit him, he's so confused he was going down. He was just getting out of there. Well, I fought I think he was with Ottawa. Ottawa called up Phil Crow. I think it's who they were with. He did it to me. And I'll tell you, like, I don't know how old I am. I've been in the league a long time. I've done it. And even watching the fight now, I still laugh at myself because I couldn't figure
Phoenix,
out how I
right?
could get my arm loose. Uh-huh.
Were you with Phoenix in that fight?
Yes.
Yeah, that was a wicked fight.
So I couldn't get my arms loose, and I kept throwing with the arm that was short that I couldn't reach him with, and then he hit me with it, and then I tried to switch back the other way. And even now I watch it, I laugh at myself. I don't know how many times I did that to guys. So that was kind of the one that I thought was pretty funny because he was getting in free punches because I couldn't figure out what I was doing or what he was doing. So,
and that crossover style, that was made popular by Tim Hunter. That's how he solved Dave Semenko. That was the first time Semenko was kind of exposed as like the one-arm fighters because that crossover move. So that's awesome that you consciously employed that and being able to throw with both hands, but to have someone use that against you, that's to piss you off a bit.
Yeah, and not figure it out. That's if you watch the fight. If you go watch it, you'll see it as I'm just completely lost. It's like, what's going on? And then you get tagged. You get hit with another one. I'm like, okay, now what's going on? And I still couldn't figure it out. But Timmy Hunter was not only a smart fighter. He never got tired. A fight.
Yeah, marathon.
That was one of those guys where you want to punch out early because you're just going to have enough hanging on for dear life. It was like he never ever got tired.
Yeah, pack a lunch.
That's great shape.
Pack a lunch. Yeah, Jim, very quickly, Tyler put this tribute video together of you, just years ago as a fan, so it's very cool to get a chance to sit there and talk to you, but he's telling me that somehow your daughter's got a hold of the video?
Yeah, there was an article I was reading that you said that your family had seen the video and it became kind of an inside joke.
Which on a
like a hockey fight tribute of all. Like I put together a video of all your fights, and it was in this.
Right, and when your daughters were in high school, they'd be bringing their boyfriends around, and they'd be like, "Did they see the video?"
Oh yeah, no, she did that, and she did it. She was at university at college. And, there were like at a little bar wherever they're at, and put it, had the person at the bar put it on.
Oh, that's great.
There.
That's so funny.
I said, that's good. I said, if anyone that wants to date you's got to watch that at least once or twice.
Oh, that's classic. Well,
That's the Canadian version of the dad on the porch with the shotgun.
So I say, we need one of those.
You show them the video and you play that Toby Keith song about, not as good as I once was or whatever.
Yeah.
Listen to that song. Listen to that song the whole time you're watching the fight.
Yeah, but I'm good enough for you, buddy.
Yeah, and you can ask her out.
Yeah, right.
Awesome.
Listen, Jim, thank you so much for doing this today. It was really great talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an honor to have you on the show.
Time. Had a blast.
Right on. Well, all the best, and hopefully we catch up with you again.
Sounds great. Anytime.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Take care.
All right, that was great. Okay, guys, listen, that's the episode of Fight Stories. We got another one, hot on the heels. We're at the Shared Universe studio here in Jersey. It's such a wicked cool space. I wanted to thank you guys for hosting us, even though we're paying you. So, so it's not so much a hosting, but guys, here it is. Let's lay it out here. Subscribe, share, comment, rate. We're on Patreon. You want to support the show? Throw us a couple bucks over there. Everything that we get right now comes back into the show. Seriously.
Absolutely. No, we want to make this the best show, the best sounding show. We want to be able to get the best guests for you.
Yeah, the most interesting guests. Tyler's. He flew down to New York, and we've just been grabbing a bunch of episodes right now, and we're happy to roll those out. But we want to go deep woods. We want to go Heartland America, baby, and dig out some real crazy
Everglades of Florida type shit. I want people that wrestle alligators. Hit us up, all right? Yeah, that's been Fight Stories with John Moses and Tyler Morrison. One more time, big thanks to our guest, gentleman Jim McKenzie.
Yeah.